Governor Adlai Stevenson, for the first time, has said yes.
We're going out of here an inspired and fighting party dedicated to the welfare of the people. We are bound to win this election. Now, the Republicans can't understand why it is that Democrats keep on winning elections. They think there's some kind of a trick in it. And they have just about gone crazy trying to find out what that trick is. You know, the real reason the Democrats win elections is a perfectly simple reason. Because the Democratic Party gives the American people the kind of government they want.
How do you do? I'm Walter Cronkite, Washington correspondent for the CBS television network. Every 4 years, the United States elects a president. For 100 years, the president has been a member of either the Republican or the Democratic Party, and it doesn't seem very likely in the immediate future that he's going to come from any other party. These parties nominate their presidential candidates at national conventions. We're going to see the highlights from one of these. The two conventions look very much alike. They elect their delegates in about the same manner. They conduct their business in about the same manner. And, well, quite truthfully, a lot of the speeches sound very much alike. Delegates are selected from every part of every state in the United States, as well as the American possessions. There are something over 1,200 delegates at each of these conventions. The convention's principal business is the nomination of a candidate for the presidency and one for the vice presidency. They also work up the party platform or the national policy that the party will promise the electorate, and they elect their own officers for the party for 4 years. This is the story of the 1952 Democratic National Convention held in the International Amphitheater in Chicago. This is the film made from the CBS television broadcast of the convention, a compression into 30 minutes of a week of high drama. The convention was distinguished by the number of men who were candidates for the presidential nomination. There were an even dozen. The battle for the nomination involved 3 groups. The liberal Northern City group, composed of New York Senator Lehman and Congressman Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Jr., their standard bearer being Averell Harriman. Closely associated with this group were the supporters of Senator Estes Kefauver. Also prominent in the Northern Liberal group were Senator Blair Moody and Governor Menon Williams of Michigan. The Southern Bloc was divided into 2 groups itself. The unreconstructed conservative Dixiecrats led by Governor James Burns of South Carolina, Governor Battle and Senator Byrd of Virginia, and the progressive South led by Senators Richard Russell of Georgia and John Sparkman of Alabama. And finally, a large block of uncommitted delegates who seemed solely interested in a candidate who they thought could defeat the Republican nominee, General Dwight Eisenhower. They were rallying behind Adlai Stevenson, governor of Illinois. The Northern City Liberals brought the first floor fight of the convention with their fight for control of the convention and the Democratic Party itself, with a resolution requiring all state delegates to pledge support to the party's nominees. This was aimed squarely at the conservative South, where in 1948, 4 southern states used the Democratic label, but voted for the bolting Dixiecrat ticket. Well, that was the setting as the Democratic National Convention opened on July 27, 1952.
From Chicago, the Democratic National Convention. Now to Walter Cronkite.
Hello, everyone. Here we are again in Studio A, our CBS television control point for the Westinghouse coverage, this time of the Democratic National Convention. From the International Amphitheater in Chicago, 4.5 miles out of downtown Chicago, out here in the stockyards, Democrats are due to begin their national convention in just a few moments' time. First session could contain some interesting developments, perhaps even a little fireworks. Governor Adlai Stevenson, the governor of Illinois, host governor to the Democratic Convention, is due to speak this morning with a welcoming speech.
What counts now is not just what we are against, but what we are for. And who leads us is less important than what leads us. What convictions, what courage, what faith win or lose. A man does not save a century or a civilization, but a militant party wedded to a principle can.
Shortly after noon, Senator Blair Moody introduced his resolution, which he said appealed to the great American principle of majority rule. Former Price Administrator Mike DeSalle, now a candidate for the Senate from Ohio, was one of the speakers in behalf of that resolution.
This is certainly not the most unpleasant task that I've ever been asked to perform. Furthermore, with the price of television time being what it is, no candidate can afford to turn any of it down. Speaking on the resolution and in support of the resolution, I want to call your attention to the fact that the substance of this resolution is contained in just one sentence. Now, it seems to me that we as members of the Democratic Convention can ask no less of the delegates to this convention, and that is that they return to their states and do whatever they can do within their power to see to it that the nominees of this convention are presented to the people of the 48 states.
Have you conferred with any other Southern delegations, Governor Battle, about this matter yet?
Yes, I have discussed this resolution with delegates from South Carolina, Mississippi, and Texas, as well as from Virginia and Louisiana. And I am advised that this resolution is not acceptable to any of those delegations.
If this resolution is passed by this convention, Governor Battle, would you take any action to leave the convention?
No, sir. We would serve notice that we will not abide by its provisions. We will be controlled by the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia, which set us here.
Thank you very much, Governor Battle. I wonder if Senator Byrd over here has anything to say about this resolution. Senator Byrd?
I think Governor Battle has covered it very thoroughly.
Thank you, Senator Byrd. Your delegation is solidly opposed to this resolution, if this is the official resolution. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And that's the story from the Virginia delegation. As you see, these Southern delegations are lining up pretty solidly against this resolution of the Humphreys, Roosevelt bloc, the liberal Northerners. They apparently will not support it.
The question now comes upon the adoption of the resolutions as proposed by the delegate from Michigan, Senator Moody. Such of the delegates as are in favor thereof will signify by saying aye. Those opposed. It appears to the chair that the ayes have it and the resolutions are adopted.
As in all conventions, there were inspirational speeches by party leaders. Here are experts from two addresses, those of Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt and Alben Barkley. Vice President Barkley was invited to speak after pressure from labor organizations forced him to withdraw his candidacy for the presidential nomination. Mrs. Roosevelt, wife of the former president and now prominent as a United States delegate to the United Nations, was referred to as the First Lady of the world, and she spoke in defense of the United Nations.
I remember well, even though it seems a long time ago, hearing for the first time a statement on the reasons why, when the war ended, we must make another try to create another world organization to help us keep the peace of the world. This talk took place in my husband's study in the White House one evening during the bitter days of the last war, when victory was not yet in sight. My husband, discussing what would happen after the war, turned to a friend and said, in effect, when this war is over and we have won it, as we will, we must apply the hard lessons learned in the war and in the failure of the League of Nations to the task of building a society of nations dedicated to enduring peace. There will be sacrifices and discouragement, but we must not fail, for we may never have another chance.
America's friend, one of the greatest speakers in all America, and one of the most beloved Americans in all of our history, the Honorable Alvin W. Barkley of Kentucky, Vice President of the United States. I am not here as a candidate for any office that this convention can confer. I should like to say to my friends of the press and radio that I regret that I have no manuscript and have therefore been unable to give them an advance on what I shall say. What I shall say, therefore, shall be spoken from the heart and not from a piece of paper. And when the American people shall have rendered their verdict in behalf of this great program, and our people will go forward to complete this edifice of which I spoke a moment ago, we shall have a fuller, happier, freer life in this nation, and we shall contribute to the world's peace and all mankind, all of the 2.5 billion human beings who today are bowed down with the weight of taxation and of burdens brought on by war and the fear of war, until the day shall come when they shall all rise from their stoop posture, standing erect before Almighty God and before mankind as free men and women. When that day comes, we shall all rejoice without regard to position, without regard to politics, without regard to race, creed, or color, without regard to economic conditions. We will all rejoice at our part in bringing these things to mankind, these things to the world. God grant that it may come in your day and mine. Thank you and goodbye.
Well, so Vice President Alvin Barkley has addressed the Democratic Convention, and he says his goodbyes to party leaders as he leaves the International Amphitheater. This is the session for the nominating speeches and not only the nominating speeches, but the demonstrations that go along with them.
The chair also desires to make a suggestion, about these balloons. Chair knows not in whose favor they are, but if our television audience is going to see what goes on, these balloons have got to remain low, and certainly not between the television set and the audience and what's going on. The clerk will call the roll of the state.
Alabama yields to Georgia for the nomination of Senator Richard B. Russell.
The next chief executive of the United States, the Honorable Richard Brevard Russell. What we think is the most progressive leader that can bring every element of America together and march shoulder to shoulder to victory over any offensive elements of this world. None other than Estes Kefauver, Senator from Tennessee. Very good, very good. We want Kefauver. I give you a liberal candidate. I give you a progressive candidate. I give you a winning candidate. I give you Senator Robert S. Kerr.
It is with great pride that I offer this convention in nomination for the presidency of the United States a leader in our party's highest tradition, James William Fulbright.
A troubleshooter for a troubled world, a great Democrat, a dedicated American, the next President of the United States, Averell Harriman of New York. The name of a great American, the Honorable Oscar R. Ewing. I give you the able and brilliant governor of the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Honorable Paul A. Dever. The great governor of the state of Michigan, the Honorable G. Menon Williams. The great Democratic governor of the great Democratic state of Illinois, Adlai Stevenson. For President of the United States by this convention, Hubert H. Humphrey. The youngest, the strongest, and the bravest man in the Democratic Party, the Vice President of the United States, Alvin W. Barkley.
It might be well to point out that before balloting actually begins tonight, there undoubtedly will be an attempt to clarify the still doubtful situation of South Carolina and perhaps even of Louisiana.
We now ask for a specific ruling by you as to whether we are or are not members of the convention. We wish a ruling as to whether we are entitled to full participation in the deliberation and votes of this convention.
As chairman of the Credentials Committee, I desire to inform the convention that the statements submitted by the states of Louisiana, South Carolina, and Virginia do not meet the requirements of the resolution recommended by the Rules Committee and the Committee on Credentials, which were adopted by this convention. Therefore, the delegates from said states have not conformed with said resolutions and are not properly qualified to vote as delegates in this convention.
Mr. Chairman, I move, in view of the statement made by Governor Battle, that the delegation from Virginia be seated.
That's FDR Jr. shouting for recognition. In the event of a roll call, if we figure that all three states in question, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Virginia, are not allowed to vote, a vote of 583.5 votes is carried.
The vote now is upon the motion of the delegate from Maryland, Mr. Sesser, that the Virginia delegation be seated in this convention. Those who are in favor of that motion will vote aye, the delegation. Those opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll of state.
And this roll call was on the Virginia motion. Now, during the balloting, it first appeared that the Maryland motion would be licked by quite a score, but a sudden shift, as I told you, in the Illinois delegation changed the picture. The Illinois group, who had put in 15 for the motion and 45 against it, changed to 54 and 8 against, and we're told at the suggestion of Jacob Arvey, the Illinois National Committee man. The Illinois move is interpreted as a tip. The Stevenson forces, at least the floor managers for it right now, want Maryland's motion upheld. The votes of several states have been shifted. So far, there have been 23 states which have changed their votes, some big changes, and some of them small. But at the moment, Virginia is moving closer toward staying in this convention by a vote of the convention tonight.
Let's switch back to the speaker's stand.
115 yes, 529 no, 86 not voted.
And so Virginia was voted full participation in the convention. Later that night, Virginia's Governor Battle moved that Louisiana and South Carolina be seated too.
The next order of business pending is the motion made by Governor Battle of Virginia that the delegations from South Carolina and Louisiana be permitted to be seated at this convention and to participate in the deliberations. As many as are in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Will the delegate from Ohio kindly repeat his second inquiry?
Governor Burns, I'll be glad to repeat my question. I'm asking you, in all sincerity, whether or not you and the delegation which you are leading in this convention will take the proper and necessary initiative in behalf of the Democrats of your state to make it a certainty that the names of the nominees for president and vice president of this convention will be on the Democratic ballot in your state.
Chair recognizes Governor Byrne.
Mr. Chairman, I've stated that under the law of our party, as well as the law of the state, it is the duty of the officials of the National Democratic Party to ask that the list of electors be placed on the ticket, and when they ask, it must, under the law of South Carolina, be placed on the ticket. And this delegation...
Don't get panicky. Don't get panicky. Don't get panicky. I'll have it out in a minute. Don't get panicky. It'll be out in a minute. It's only a newspaper. Take it easy. Don't get panicky. Don't get panicky. It's only a newspaper. It's only a newspaper.
Well, don't you be...
It's only a newspaper. You'll stamp it right out. Don't get panicky. It's only a newspaper. Just take it easy. Stay there. Stay there. There's 2 firemen and 2 policemen there now. Take it easy. There's 2 firemen and 2 policemen there. Take it easy now. They'll have that newspaper out in a minute. Take it easy. They'll have that newspaper out in a minute. They'll have the newspaper out in a minute. They'll have the newspaper out. The firemen are here. The firemen are here. Let's not have any panic. Let's not have any panic. The firemen are here. The firemen are here. Let's have no panic. Take it easy. All right, it's all out. 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 Governor Burns.
Mr. Chairman,
Governor Burns.
I want to announce that I did not set the place on fire.
After 4 days of the bitterest controversy, the problems were finally resolved and the convention got down to its major task, that of nominating its candidate for the presidency. The first ballot, which took an agonizing 3.5 hours, was highlighted by the announcement of President Truman's vote. He was a delegate from Missouri, but his vote was read by his alternate present at the convention, Thomas Gavin of Kansas City.
I hope you will see your way clear to cast a vote for Adeline Stevenson when the nominations come in. Harry F. Truman.
This is the Independence arriving in the skies over Chicago, over Midway Airport, where a delegation is standing by to receive the President of the United States.
No, that was not. 1/2 vote for Kefauver, 4 votes for Kerr, 2 1/2 votes for Harriman, 8 votes for...
The clerk will call the roll.
And this is the second ballot of the Democratic National Convention in the International Amphitheater in Chicago. Right behind him, Senator Russell with 268. Senator Kefauver, who was watching the proceedings, has said that here on the floor, the first ballot has been completed. You have seen our Westinghouse scoreboard with the figures that show that Senator Kefauver led on the first ballot with 340 votes. Second was Governor Stevenson with 273, some 67 votes. He got more votes than he expected on this first ballot, and he now expects to win on the 5th or 6th ballot.
Clerk will announce the vote.
Russell, 294. Kefauver, 362 1/2. Kerr, 5 1/2. Harriman, 121. Stevenson, 324 1/2.
Following the second ballot, the convention recessed for dinner. Everywhere there were meetings, huddles, caucuses, the president, dining at the Saddle and Sirloin Club next door to the amphitheater itself, met with the head of the New York delegation. When the convention came to order after the dinner recess, the third ballot was about to begin, and Averell Harriman announced the withdrawal of his candidacy. The bandwagon was rolling in favor of Governor Stevenson.
Alabama, 22 votes. Arkansas, 22 votes. California, 68 votes.
Fred Betts, Jr. of Lamar, Colorado, desires to contest the accuracy of the vote and ask for a poll of the delegation.
Senator Paul Douglas coming into the hall with Senator Kefauver. Senator Douglas has been one of the leaders of the Kefauver campaign. They're getting a round of applause. It's a question as to whether there is going to be an announcement of some kind here. They're coming to the platform. Discussion between Chairman Sam Rayburn and Senator Kefauver. Senator Douglas. Rayburn seems to be resisting whatever they have in mind.
In order that the chair might not be misunderstood, for no purpose in the history of a Democratic convention has a roll call been adjourned for any purpose. The clerk will continue the call of the state.
Connecticut, 16 votes. Georgia, 28 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Idaho, voting under the unit rule, cast 12 votes for Governor Stevenson.
Iowa, Indiana, 26 votes. Kansas, 16 votes. Louisiana, 20 votes.
Senator Robert S. Kerr has officially announced his withdrawal from the Democratic presidential nominating race.
I give up 1/2 vote for Stevenson. Michigan, operating under the unit rule, cast 40 votes for Governor Stevenson.
Minnesota, 26 votes. Mississippi, Montana.
I question the accuracy of that vote, and I ask for a recount.
Nevada.
Mr. Chairman, the draft is not yet strong enough to stir the granite hills of New Hampshire. New Hampshire cast 8 votes for S.G. Kefauver.
North Dakota, 8 votes. Ohio, 54 votes. Anna Jo Romer.
Anna Jo Romer, 1 vote for Governor Stevenson.
So they're going through the long list of 62 names of the Ohio delegation. But while the proceedings here are slowed down by that poll of the Ohio delegation, things seem to be still pretty lively outside the Chicago edition of the Blair House, the place where Governor Stevenson has been residing. The newspapermen, radio, and television reporters are all still awaiting his emergence from that building. Our Bill Leonard is up there. Let's get a direct report from him from what it's like.
Here on Astor Street, in front of the governor's temporary mansion, the Blair House, a crowd of about 3,000 people whose cars have blocked the streets have gathered here, not excitedly, but expectantly, waiting for what they know, or they are almost certain now will come, and that is a speech to the press and to the world by Governor Adlai Stevenson, a preview right here of his acceptance of the Democratic nomination.
That was the scene as described, and as you saw it, Bill Leonard was down there outside of the Blair House where Governor Stevenson waits, and this is the waiting crowd around Gate 5, the very important person's entrance here at the International Amphitheater.
Mr. Chairman, Pennsylvania cast 70 votes for Governor Stevenson.
Rhode Island, 12 votes. Texas cast 52 votes for Dick Russell. 6 votes for Stevenson. Virgin Islands, 2 votes.
Mr. Speaker, the Utah delegation would like to correct its vote. The delegation has been polled and cast 12 votes for Governor Stevenson.
The governor will not know when he comes out on the platform unless somebody informs him in a moment that just down on the floor of the convention hall they moved and made the vote for him as the nominee of the party unanimous.
I accept your nomination and your program. I would not seek your nomination for the presidency because the burdens of that office stagger the imagination. Its potential for good or evil now and in the years of our lives smothers exultation and converts vanity to prayer. I have asked the merciful Father, the Father of us all, to let this cup pass from me. But from such dread responsibility, one does not shrink in fear, in self-interest, or in false humility. So, if this cup may not pass from me, except I drink it, thy will be done.
These are the pictures you'll be seeing in tomorrow's papers.
First, let me say how much I regret the inconvenience that all of you newsmen have suffered. I'm sorry that you've had to maintain your vigil here for several days. I am deeply moved by what has taken place tonight, and I have never been more conscious of the appalling responsibilities of the office. I did not seek it. I did not want it. I am, however, persuaded that to shirk it, to evade, to decline, would be to repay honor with dishonor. I shall go now to the convention hall and accept the nomination of the Democratic Party.
On its way to the amphitheater.
I have not sought the honor you have done me. I could not seek it because I aspired to another office, which was the full measure of my ambition. And one does not treat the highest office within the gift of the people of Illinois as an alternative or as a consolation prize. And finally, my friends, in this staggering task that you have assigned me, I shall always try to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with my God.
The two Stevenson boys are introduced by their father to Vice President Barclay and to Mrs. Barclay.
Now wave to them.
I proudly present to this convention for its nominee for the Vice Presidency of the United States, the progressive, the patriot, the fighting Democrat, the great American, John J. Sparkman of Alabama.
Now the business of the convention having been finished, the chair declares this great Democratic National Convention adjourned sine die.
From the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, this is the CBS Television Network.